薄いのアホ。
プリズムパワーメイクアップカードレディー。
Welcome to Shojo and Tell, where we discuss shoujo manga and tell who's hot and who's not, talk about themes, and just generally geek out. Today, March 27th, 2022, we'll be shoujo and telling about the second half of the series Shortcake Cake by Suu Morishita. So that's volumes 7 through 12. I'm your host, Ashley McDonald, and I'm joined once again by Olive. Hello, Olive.
Hi, I'm Olive Sauver, also known as All of the Manga Reader on Twitter, at All of the Manga, because I really like bad puns.
No, it's a great pun. I know.
Thank you. I like to think so, but sometimes people are like, wow, that's a dad joke. I have contributed for Anime Feminist, and I also, when I can find time, write and review manga and anime for But Why Though, a geek community. At Twitter is at But Why Though PC. And I mostly just yell about my nerdiness on the internet.
That's what the internet is just for, right?
Right? It should be.
I don't think that's what they designed it for, but it is what it is now.
You know, yelling about geekdom and fanfiction. I think those are the two best things on the internet.
Yes.
Civilly
I'm dabbling in fanfiction again. I'm like, oh boy.
Oh, rest in peace. Rest in peace to your sleep schedule.
Rest in peace to me. Yes, I know. Okay, so this is about the second half of Shortcake Cake. So if you have not read Shortcake Cake, or just don't like spoilers, like, I don't advise that you listen to this episode. You can go listen to the first one, figure out if you want to read Shortcake Cake, and come back here. Shortcake Cake is available in English from Viz Media's Shojo Beatline, so go do that. Otherwise, we're going to hop right into it. So here's the spoiler warning. Spoilers start here. Okay. So I'll give a brief recap of what happens in these volumes to jog people's memories, but also so much, so I'm not going to go into elaborate detail. I'm going to keep it brief. So the volume 7 begins with Ten had admitted to Riku that she liked him, but she was like, don't reply yet. I want to, like, prove to you my seriousness after I rejected you once. So she spends a whole volume, like, becoming a different person, in my opinion, but that's okay. So then they end up getting together, but then it becomes a family drama about Riku and gremlin child Rei, and what their problems are about. So much, and yet so little. So we learn a lot about their backstory, and everybody gets a happy ever after. Yay! The end. Okay, so Olive, what the hell?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yep. That's why I'll laugh if you listen to the last podcast episode, folks. That's why I was just like sitting in slight maniacal glee. Yeah, it arguably takes a hard left turn. It's definitely a polarizing ending. I think there's a lot in there that I actually really enjoyed. There's a lot that I'm like, it needs like 2.5 more volumes to like actually flesh out and not feel like such a hard left turn. But yeah, it's a lot, and also, like you said, not a lot. It's a lot of people making a large deal about things that really aren't that big of a deal.
Yeah,
in my
it's just like, if you
opinion.
guys talked, this would be nothing.
You know, although to be fair, what is the theme of shoujo manga, if not, if you all just actually said things out loud?
Yeah, there would be no story if we just said things out loud. That would be
just
that
the universal theme of Friends. Let's talk about some communication.
Communication skills are lacking in this group.
Very lacking. And I excuse the teenagers, as I did not have good communication skills as a teenager. That is believable. The adults, however, nope.
Yeah, like, the adults are just like,
the adults are
even
so bad
more wild.
Yeah, the adults are so bad at communicating. They turn to the teenagers and say, "Please fix our problems for us." And I'm like, no.
No. I'm just like, okay, you know, I was writing a lot of notes for volume 7 and like maybe a little bit in volume 8, and then the last 3 volumes I was just like, I have to process all the story beats that have happened to me just like in my head. There's no notes.
The notebook against the wall and we're like, nope.
Yeah, I was just like, there's nothing to write here because it's all just what?
Yep. There's a lot.
So your argument is that if it was longer, it would be okay. But I'm just like, I feel like they were making up the conflicts between Rei and Riku as they went along.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know that I can like follow the logic behind some of the adults in that story, particularly the grandfather and Riku's biological mom.
Okay. I should rephrase what I said. It's not that I think it would be okay. I think it'd be better than what it is.
Okay.
And I also think it wouldn't necessarily be 2.5 volumes right in that arc. I just feel like the series as a whole, maybe another volume in the first half. There just need, if this was really the ending plan from the get-go, there needed to be a lot more dropped earlier on to make these character arcs and this storyline just believable. Like, to see the growth there. Like, Riku and Ten is one thing, but everyone else, like I said, all last 1 through 6 were just like, why the hell is Rei feral goblin child here?
Yes.
And then
7, he's not in 7.
He's literally the deuteragonist of the back half, basically. He's just, yeah, and literally the back half of the series is let's solve Rei's issues. So, yeah, I feel like, specifically with, like, Rei and stuff, they needed to do, in my opinion, a lot more work in the first half. Maybe add an extra volume in there where we just make it less of a
info dump at the very end here.
Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean everything would be okay, but it would maybe feel a little better to read than, like you said, where you just drop your notebook and go, what? What?
Yeah, so I feel like I should try to explain to the audience all the what's that happen. So,
yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you do that.
Okay, I'm like, I'm gonna try. Okay. I tried to explain it to my husband on a walk before recording this, and I feel like I didn't do a great job. So maybe I learned something.
That's all the funnier.
Yes. Okay, so, you know, Riku and Rei are brothers, but they are not biological brothers. The story goes that they had a very, very sweet, like, mom/adoptive mom, birth mom/adoptive mom, named Mahoro, I believe. Mm-hmm. So she was trying to have a child later in her, you know, life of being able to be pregnant. So like late 30s, early 40s, and having trouble. And she was an art teacher. So she had a student who was like obviously struggling in some way and was always like, I wish you were my mom, and like weird things like that. So she did eventually have a child who was Rei. But then like 100 days later, they find another baby who's been left with the name of Riku. And they're like, fine, we'll adopt this Riku kid. So Riku is better at everything, like piano and art and all this junk at school than Rei. So Rei gets jealous. He thinks he wants to be the heir. But when he overhears his grandfather be like, no, my one true grandson is Riku. He's my real heir. Because for some...
We love that blood relative politics.
We love that. Yes.
Because screw adoption. You're not really a part of the family. Sorry. Salty.
Yeah. Well, so Rei overhears that and is like hurt that his grandfather is like, oh, my adoptive brother is better than me. But this is where one of the things I don't understand is that we are told that for some reason the grandfather does not like Mahoro's choice of partner. But we do not know this man at all. Like, we do not understand what he is like. Everything that we are shown of Mahoro's husband is that he's a nice doctor guy. Like, he seems perfectly fine. But he fought against their marriage forever, so they didn't get married until later, and that's why they have all this trouble having children. So like it's a escalating seeming error, and he doesn't. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think my brain might have concocted a reason because I was so confused. It's like that coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I guess anytime I read like a show, I can't believe this is a common enough trope that I can say this. I feel like anytime I read any kind of shoujo josei manga where the grandpa's always like, I will never approve of this marriage. I just always, I think, assume it has something to do with like the family of the spouse, like regardless of
like he wasn't prestigious enough.
Yeah, like yes, he's a doctor and stuff, but I just assumed he probably came from, in their mind, a lower class family or something like that. I don't know if that's even factual in the manga. So again, listeners, this is very likely Olive's coping mechanism for not understanding.
I mean, it's the only thing that does make sense and
right?
like as a stereotype would work. So I'm just like, but that's so dumb.
And the grandpa seems very stereotype.
Yes.
Traditional angry grandpa. So
yeah, a head of a wealthy family must keep the wealth going.
Yeah, arranged marriages.
Yeah. So I'm just like, but this is garbage. So that's one part of it. So Rei gets very sad and jealous that Riku is favored by everybody and is better than him. Otherwise, they used to be very close. He was always like, Riku, you are my real brother. And they were like cute together, like in a cartoonish fashion.
Yeah, it was cartoonish, but I did like enjoy seeing at least young Rei being like, F you all. I don't, like, who cares about blood brother? He's my real brother. F you all. Like,
yeah.
Someone needed to say F you to the weird blood politics in families, and I'm sorry that it had to be the very small child Rei.
Yes, right?
Because again, a theme in this back half is adults apparently can't get their beat together.
They can't get anything together. So that's part of the drama. Rei has severe jealousy over Riku, but then their parents die in a car accident because of course they do. This is a shoujo manga.
Of course they do. We can't have parents present.
Yeah, we did it. Like, they gotta get hit by that truck-kun, man. They gotta get hit by it or whatever. So they die, and Riku's biological mom comes to the funeral ceremony looking for Riku. Because again, Mahoro used to be her art teacher. She was very fond of her, so like she's like, let me go check. But she finds Rei first, so then she mistakes Rei for Riku, and Rei's like, no. Yeah, exactly. It's like, he doesn't look like you at all.
They don't look alike at all. Also, again, I get it. But I'm also like, ma'am, timing. Not saying she can't go to her art teacher who she's very close with funeral. Yeah. But I'm also like, maybe
it's not the time to be like, let me go take this
I'm your
child
mother.
away.
Like, it's one thing to like maybe sit in the corner, like, and I don't know if maybe that was her plan, because since she ran into Rei, we never really find out what her exact plan of for lack of better phrasing, plan of attack was there. Maybe she was planning to stand in the corner and just watch over and make sure he was, I mean, I can't say make sure he was smiling because he's at his mother's funeral. So I'm not sure, but sometimes I'm like, did you plan to tell him there? Because I feel like,
I think again, she did.
Yeah, she did. And that's right. And that's where I was like, ma'am, you're totally welcome to come to this woman's funeral, but maybe now is not the time to tell her adopted son who's crying over her death because she was the mother to him. Hey, I'm your biological mother, by the way. Like, that's not bad timing. Very bad timing. So as much as I didn't like what Rei said, again, he's a child. A lot of emotions happening that day because his mother just died. Ma'am,
do not. Yeah, but she went there. Like, literally, she was going to go there.
Yeah. She's going to be like, okay, bye. Taking my kid back.
Like, I struggle with her so much because the way I feel like I feel this way about Suu Morishita just in general. Like, I've been reading A Sign of Affection, and I really, really like A Sign of Affection. But I'm also like, the tension in both of these series at different points is so ominous. And then, like, it never turns out to be that ominous, right? But it's like, it should be, though. You know, like, that would be more logical.
I'm only one volume in, so I can only attest for that first volume. But I'm sure. I believe you.
Okay, but I think that way about a Shortcake Cake, too. Like,
yeah.
The way that you are set up with, I forget, is her name Ayame? Yeah, her name is Ayame, is Riku's mom, biological mom. So the way she is set up, you are like, oh, this girl is in some crazy bad relationship, right? Like, she's like dating a teacher, she's gotten raped, like something bad.
You literally are like, oh my god, this is like, yeah, you something scandalous, like you got with a teacher, like, exactly. Like, there is just so much in this back half where they build up so much dramatic tension and then they reveal what the thing is, and as an audience member just reading outside of it, you're like, that's it? That's what you're so stressed about here?
Yeah. So, like, it turns out, and, like, I'm not saying that this is not bad, because I do think it is still bad. She had a relationship with a guy that she actually liked. He was 3 years older, but she had her first child at the age of, like, 15.
Yeah.
And decided to keep it. So Riku has an older sister.
That's Hotaru.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Hotaru was born, and she actually, and Ayame chose to keep Hotaru and was like, yeah. And the dad was actually somewhat involved. He was going to college, but trying to provide them with money and see them occasionally. So you're like, okay, that's not a great situation, but it's not the demon thing that you think was going to happen.
Like, honestly, they had it amped up where I'm sitting here thinking, oh my god, she had an affair with Rei's dad.
Right?
Mahoru's
Like,
husband.
totally...
Like, literally, that's what it's like, feels like it's setting up. And then you're like, no, she just had an affair with this random guy who's older than her, and he was actually a bigger dick than he let on, because he's like, oh, because my reputation, I have to leave all the work on you, and I must just only come, like, once a week to cuddle my child and things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is, I mean, I feel for her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, like, what he did is awful to her and shitty and stuff like that. But I literally was like, oh, this was not an affair with Rei's dad? That's totally what I thought was going on. Also, when we first meet her, it took me so long to figure out that that other child that looks exactly like a Riku is not Riku.
Yeah.
You know, that one child that was living there because I guess his parents divorced or something, and he's like, when Horo's pregnant with Rei and stuff like that, he's like, come on out, baby, so we can play. Nope, not Riku.
Not Riku.
Not Riku, not Hotaru. I don't think we ever... Oh, wait. That's Shiroka.
Oh, yeah.
It's Shiroka, but it's not very clear right away to me that it was Shiroka. So you're sitting here thinking it's like Hotaru or someone else, and then it takes you so long to figure out it's Shiroka. And I literally, to the extent where, I forgot it was Shiroka and was like, who's this random kid we never see again?
No,
the
whole reveal was like super confusing.
Very confusing. Very confusing. Anyway.
That's why I was like, I just read those volumes and was like, I'm just going to try to remember what happened. Like that.
No, so, yeah, there's many phases since I'm assuming we're at the phase of talking about Ayame, maybe, kind of.
Yeah, like Ayame, so like my struggle with her is like beyond the tension thing. Then I guess the next thing is that she makes the conscious choice to then have Riku as a try to like trap the guy that she's been in the relationship with. Mm-hmm. She's like, if we have 2 children, surely his parents must accept me and everybody must help me, which is like a crazy plan that obviously
did not
That's not how
anything works.
Right. So then she's like, she's been cast further out, and she's obviously like, oh, I can't take care of 2 children on my own, so she leaves Riku with Mahoru.
Yeah.
And again, my struggle with her is that I'm just like, what is this story? Is this based on a real... It just seems so farcical, you know?
I mean, to be fair, I have met and heard of my fair share of...
Really?
Crappy parent stories. Yeah. Not in my family exactly, but that bit of the story actually wasn't that surprising to me. I mean, it was a little... But again, I think it was more me still being like, oh, because again, I was still expecting some big scandalous affair with a member of the household.
I was definitely just expecting like rape or something. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm like, I go really dark. I'm sorry.
You know, because that I will say though, then we're very grateful that it's not.
Right? Exactly. I'm like, I mean, I guess it's good that it's not. It's just, I don't understand Suu Morishita's like attempts at tension are so weird to me. I'm like, his vibes are so strong.
And I will say, because it makes it awkward, because at first you're like, why is everyone laying into this woman? And then you're kind of like, oh, because when everyone's... I'm not entirely okay with everything Shiroka says to her when they're having that big conversation. But I do, again, get that overprotective big brother vibe where I'm not trying to excuse the way he phrases things, but I do also, like, get it where he's just kind of like, you're asking him to move back home with you after all this time. If you're going to give him some huge story where you're entirely solely the victim here just to guilt him into coming back, don't, kind of thing. Which is probably harsher than he should. I think Chiaki phrases it much better-ish.
Yeah.
when he comes in and he's like, listen, I just want Riku to be happy. Whatever you're planning to tell him, if it is something that's just going to hurt him more, please just don't. Which I think makes more sense because it's like what she's literally going to tell him in this, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry story is literally I decided
like, no.
to be like, oh, hey, she's basically, her plan is to literally basically tell him the honest truth, which, yes, good. But the honest truth is literally like, she said, oh, I can't take care of this kid that I willingly chose to have to try to entrap this person I was with. I'm going to give him to somebody. Which, okay, I should phrase, there are many situations where people have to give up their children. And it's painful and it's sad. And there should not be shame in that or penalization for that. Like, I get it. It's a painful, painful decision. I think my issue with her specifically in the way it is written in Shortcake Cake is she seems a lot more flippant about it. Yes, she's crying. Yes, she is crying and very sad in this situation. But it feels... I'm trying to phrase this in a way that's not going to sound really awful. It feels a lot more crying because she's not getting what she wants in a way. She wants her son to move back and tell her everything's okay. No way I would ever be upset with you. And to me, I'm like, he has every right to be hurt. Just like you have kind of every right to need to do what you needed to do to survive, but he has a right then to be hurt.
Yeah.
And want that separation if he chooses it. So it's just kind of, that whole scene is a mess. It's a mess. And then you've got Rei going in, and then Ten literally... I will say, I do enjoy, even though it's tonally just absolute whiplash, but I did get a good laugh at Ten and Rei yelling in the hallway after he opened his big mouth, and then Ten's like, hey, excuse me, and drags him out, and was like, what are you doing?
What are you doing, you dum-dum? You told me to stop you if you were like this. And he's like, let me go home. And she's like, no. Yeah, they were funny. Yeah, it's just like that whole scene again, because even the way Chiaki phrased his thing where he's like, you know, if it's just going to be something that really, really hurts Riku, like, don't say it. Made me be like, okay, yeah, she was a victim of, like, some horrible trauma, and Riku is not going to want to know that he was, like, not a child of love. But in a way he was. Like, I'm not saying fully, right? Because it was definitely, like, a scheme to have a man marry her. But at least she thought that she loved that guy, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so in some ways it was better than I expected. And they brought up postpartum depression. I was like, whoa, what's up?
Yeah.
Progressive shoujo manga is happening to me now.
No, I like that too. Again, there were nuggets in there that I'm like, great.
Yeah.
If only we didn't just throw this at the wall and then ran away.
Yeah. And then, yeah, it's like all those issues could be fine, but the extremes of the emotions and the whiplash between them is too extreme, right? Like, then when Rei and Riku finally get to, like, I think the resolution with the mom was actually okay, because Riku ends up being like, like, maybe we can talk sometimes, but, like, I'm never gonna consider you my mom. I'm 16, 17 years old or whatever at that point. He turned 17 the next day or something. So he's like, I'm 17 years old and you've never seen me do anything. I don't know who you are. Like, you're not my mom, right? So he's like, maybe we can talk every once in a while. I'll talk to my sister, but no more. But then the resolution with Rei is like, bro, we love each other forever. And like, what? It's like, you guys said you hated each other so much. You got into a fist fight going to visit your parents' grave. I just can't.
Yeah, Rei is like, again, it's that weird thing where you get into the murky waters where I can't obviously, like, everyone processes trauma differently. I'm not trying to say this is not an appropriate response to, like, again, I get it. However, once again, it does feel a bit over-exaggerated. Like, Rei talking about how twisted and messed up he is, and, like, the way he treats people just seems like such an... it is a natural defense mechanism, but this is like the defense mechanism on steroids. It is just so hyper-exaggerated the way he verbally abuses people to push them away and is like, I can't communicate my feelings. And I'm like, I get it, bro. But also, this is way, like, too many people. And that's also, I blame the adults. They enabled this behavior. I'm going to be real.
Yeah, Shiraoka.
Yeah, Shiraoka
wild.
Totally, listen, Shiraoka fully enabled this behavior from Rei. He, at any point in time, and I get, granted, Shiraoka is really not that much older than Rei. He's like, I think he's actually now younger than me in the manga, which frightens me. And I will say, I was a hot mess in my early and mid-20s. So, to be fair. However, he's also, like, basically the big brother father figure here, and he's just...
they're all like, he was in a gang, he's being super shady, and then it's like, no, he's just really bad at knowing what to do and explaining the situation.
He's having, like, full I don't know what to do panic mode, and he's, like, just so scared of seeing either Riku or Rei hurt again that he unintentionally hurts them worse by enabling Rei and basically not calling him out when it's like, okay, you are allowed to feel frustrated emotionally, but this is an excessively bad emotional response to this. And then vice versa, he just lets Rei unleash on Riku and then it's like, I'm so sorry. And I'm just like, And then my favorite, he recruits 2 teenagers to solve the family's problems.
Yeah. He recruits Chiaki and Ten to he's like, you guys have passed my test. It was a very elaborate test. Now let's go fix everything. You're like, what? Okay. I can't. I think what bothers me the most. What bothers me the most about Shiraoka is just like, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like I had it for a hot second, and now I'm like, what is it? It's just like, I think it's that he's convinced he knows what is right, though.
Yes.
Like, regardless of how bad the situation gets, he's like, I know that they both love each other, and I know that if I can just game this correctly, like, it will all be okay. And, like, in the end, he's correct. So I'm like, all right, all right, bro, you did it, you know? Yeah. But he's just so, like, the way that he's overbearing overbearing might not be the right word, but, you know, when Riku's biological mom comes around and is like, I want to meet Riku, Shiraoka is very much like, no, you don't deserve that. And it's like, whoa, bro, it's not your choice. Is Riku's choice.
Yeah, it's not your choice. Like, I get that you're basically also a brother in this family, and this is your gut response, similar to Rei's at the funeral, but also, unfortunately, you are technically the adult in this situation, and you need to step back and maybe figure out that, shockingly, as we all discovered, this is the way that things get fixed-ish.
Ish.
Also, Ron deserved a lot better than a proposal walking down the hallway of an inn. Because dating is too much effort now.
I mean, it was like move over, Star Wars. I've got hold my beer, man.
I guess it fits how their relationship has been throughout the manga of just kind of this goofy like, F you, but yeah, I'm still in love with you, dang it. But I'm also like, come on. You couldn't have pulled out, like, you couldn't have tried to be genuine to her at least once. Just suck it up and admit that you're head over heels for her. Please, just say it out loud to her once.
Nope, he's not gonna do that.
Of course not.
I know.
Because people in this manga don't voice their emotions properly. Except 10, our lovely 10. Well, mostly she voices her emotions.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was like, I feel like now we have to transition from the
back half
Mizuhara
family drama.
From family drama to go back to who I thought were our main characters, which were Ten, Chiaki, and Riku's there. So Ten and Chiaki and Riku are the alright. So again, volume 7 was like 10 cut off her iconic long hair and like gets into makeup and like starts dieting and is like, oh, I'm skinnier now, and like I do like crunches and sit-ups and squats to get fit, and then now she goes back to Riku, and Riku didn't ask for any of that. Riku's like, I loved you the whole time, dummy. It's just like, what?
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think is like frustrating too, is Riku's actually not a big jerk shoujo character. Like, he's very genuine and sweet, and he's like, before 10 cut him off and didn't let him speak, he was just gonna be like, oh my gosh, I like you too.
I know.
But she was like, no, don't say anything.
I'm gonna spend a whole volume bettering myself for you.
And he's just like, girl, no, I don't want this. This is not the 10 I like. I mean, yeah, I think there's levels to it where I won't also shame, like, I definitely understand, like, as someone who's, like, kind of started seeing someone at one point, like, I definitely had that mentality where, yes, I do makeup, but sometimes I, like, go through phases where I'm like, I'm too tired for this. But, like, when I do, it is sometimes kind of fun to have someone that I want to look a little pretty for. Yes, it's for them, but it's also a little for me. So I could get the makeup more. The dieting, as someone who's dealt with food insecurity, that made me really uncomfortable. I did not like the dieting bit at all. The hair, I was like, this was unnecessary, but I mean, sure, but if she had cut her hair not because of Riku, if there had been any other plot storyline where she's just like, I want to change, and cuts her hair, great. But because it was right after she's like, I need to change for Riku, I'm like, why would you do this?
I know. I'm like, I know that hair can grow back, but hers was so long. It's going to take years.
Yeah, literally the only thing I'm like okay / comfortable with all of it was the makeup more, because that is, we kind of had a discussion, I think, in the last podcast too, about like, okay, and stuff like that, and not the, we don't shame girls who wear makeup here. Like, there's a natural progression of being curious about actually being more feminine and things like that. And that I'm slightly okay with. But everything else, God, the dieting, that I forgot about that because it was so uncomfortable. I just blocked it out.
Yeah, and it was like all women just like inherently know this, and I was like, no, don't be gender essentialist about it. I don't want to know this.
No. And again, the big thing that kills me is Riku did not ask for. Honestly, I would argue Riku didn't want that.
Right, like, he doesn't say anything afterwards to be disparaging about it. Like, he's not like, oh, why did you cut your hair? Like, he doesn't say anything about it, but he also definitely didn't need it to happen.
Yeah, he didn't need it to happen. And it's like that weird balance where, again, I feel like I'm trying too hard to defend Riku, and I don't know if that sounds bad listening back to this later, but to me, I'm like, he doesn't ask for this. But again, there's that weird line, too, where then what he's like, if he then, there's the bit where I want him to be like, no, don't do this. I don't want you to do this. But then at the same time, she doesn't explicitly tell him that she's doing, I mean, she tells him, I want to be better and deserve this for you, but I feel like she doesn't necessarily tell him the specifics. So then there's that weird zone where it's like, we've established that Riku is very conscientious of like the gals in his life and when he flirts with them and things like that and wanting them to actually feel good about themselves. So like, I can definitely see him being like, I'm not gonna make her feel bad if she cut her hair because she wanted to. Like, there's, again, it's just this whole fun not communicating thing of like I don't think Riku realizes the extent of what she's doing, quote unquote, for him to say, no way, I don't need you to do this. And then Ten's just in this mentality of like, I need to make you like me again, when we're like, girl, he has not stopped.
He never stopped.
Ever. Let him speak. I never thought I'd say that in a shoujo manga. Let the guy speak. He just will tell you this.
He will just say that he loves you forever at the age of 17. He knows.
Oh, yeah. He just knows. He knows.
I know.
Oh,
yeah.
boy.
And,
yeah. Ten, why?
Like, she becomes such more of a stereotypical female-looking protagonist after that, and I'm like, ugh.
And even her behavior, she becomes a lot less
blunt.
Yeah. And it's sad.
It is sad.
Especially because it's not as like an older shoujo series where we see a full change. Here's a good example that's not even a shoujo manga. This is not a Grease the musical situation where this is like night and day. Oh my god, they both literally changed. He became a jock, she became a greaser. Like, whoa. I mean, granted, nothing's really subtle in this manga, but this is the subtlest it could be. And since all of these characters, you have to bang them on the head with it, to them it's subtle. It's like, I don't think anyone really notices almost, and it's sad.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm saying. Nobody acknowledges it after.
No one really acknowledges or realizes that she's almost gotten quieter. She's so scared of losing Riku that she gets very hesitant to speak up. I mean, she does speak up at the very end where it counts with Rei, and like we have that good banter where she's like, "Why are you a
gremlin?"
Yeah, which is good. I would have loved to see her call Shiraoka out because I feel like volumes 1 through 6, 10 would have. It's weird because it almost feels like Chiaki becomes more vocal and blunt in the back half.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just like
we're just wondering who's the main character here. I just want to know. Suu Morishita. I get it that all three are the main character, but who's the main character?
What is happening? Okay, yeah, so Chiaki was actually there for the second confession between Riku and Ten and pushes them together, and it's like funny, awkward. Because again, how is Chiaki not gay? What happened here? He says, I love you. He says he loves Riku more than Ten says that she loves Riku. I don't actually count that. It might actually be very close and similar, but like he's competing real hard.
My headcanon is he's bisexual. And that's not going to change. I could say the very terrible answer of, shoujo. But as we've seen with the beautiful series, My Love Mix-Up, that's becoming less of a thing. But I would argue because of heteronormative traditions in shoujo, he must end up with one of the female characters, even the one that was randomly thrown in the back half of this series.
He ended up with female Riku. He ends up with her sister.
Like, literally, it was just like, I'm like, okay, you basically kind of tried to merge Ten and Riku into one person to make bisexual Chiaki happy because he was in love with both, and then they chose each other. And, okay, I guess. But I also would have loved to see him happy just on his own. Like, I was happy to see him happy at the end. I was like, okay, yeah. I guess. But again, there was like zero interaction between the two of them in the mainline series before the epilogue. And when we met her, she was with that other guy in the boarding house, Ryu. So it was just kind of like, it was just it felt so forced in the epilogue. Like, yeah.
I was just like, I can't believe, like, as soon as it was revealed that Riku had a sister and Chiaki had any amount of interest in her, I was like, no, don't do it. You're gonna do it. Damn it.
Also, can we talk about the really cute pillow talk that Ten and Riku had, where they're arguing over who loves who more, and then Ten's like, actually, the winner here is Chiaki.
Yes, I was like, yes, you see it, so do.
And then Riku's like, what? And Ten's like, no, you don't understand. Because Riku's like, no, Chiaki told me that he told you he had feelings for you and that you rejected him. Like, nah. And I also love that they can all talk so openly about that and still be friends. But then Ten's like, no, you don't understand. If I told Chiaki I hated him, he'd be like, why? But if you told him you hated him, he'd start bawling.
Yes. That was definitely a great moment. I was like,
that was so good. That was just, again, what really pulled me through, even like in the epilogue, was just, and that's where I wish it stayed, is the three of them.
Yeah.
Just the story of these three kids figuring things out. And you could have dealt with like solving Riku's family drama, but I feel like that should have been like a sub-arc instead of the main arc. Like, yeah. I get how it brought all three friends together, but then we got no real storylines then of Ten and Riku maybe doing something for Chiaki, or Chiaki and Riku doing something for Ten, besides both of them having emotions for her. I don't count that. It's more of like the scale became super unbalanced, when in the first half it felt a lot more balanced between the three of them.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, then Ten changed and like faded into the background, and it made me very sad.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what you said seemed to be where like the idea that Suu Morishita had for the series initially came from, because in the back matter, they said, I wondered what would happen in a love triangle where the two rivals were close friends. Riku and Chiaki's relationship was born from there. I thought it would be a shame if one of the rivals got the girl and the other faded away, so I thought I would build in a bigger challenge for the three to overcome. And it's like, okay, but you made the girl fade away in this. Like,
yeah, you made her fade away, and then you gave him his random older sister character that you threw in.
Yeah, that introduction was super wild too. Like, it was just suddenly like, and here are two randos at the end of a volume, and you're like, I don't even want to know who these people are. Like, don't tell me.
Again, I forget. Did they say what happened to Ryu, who was in love with Hotaru?
I don't think.
No, he just faded into obscurity, and then in the epilogue, it's Hotaru's with Chiaki.
Yeah, I think he might have come to like the reunion, but I don't know what he was doing. Like, I don't.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. I feel like I almost would have rathered, if they were going to have him with someone in the epilogue, just had say he was with someone and have it be someone we didn't know. And just be like, yeah, he met someone and is happy if he had to be with someone, but like, it just felt so forced. And the fact that it was Riku's older sister just was like, you're just furthering my theory of bisexual Chiaki.
Yeah, right? It's just like, okay, so he was gay for Riku, but he had to settle. Like, I don't...
Yeah, no, literally it feels like he settled. Versus, again, if he had met somebody who we had never met before, and they just, like, either not shown their face and just had him on the phone with them, or just, like, said something, or just very brief, just been like, yeah, Chiaki met someone and is happy with them, but this is focused on their reunion of the trio.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, this reminds me of, like, legitimately one of my favorite shoujo manga, Maid-sama, where, like, a lot of the same things happen, right? Like, the family drama suddenly ramps up for the rich people in the back half, to the point where it's like you literally don't know what's going on at some point. Yeah.
It was so convoluted. God, I love Maid-sama.
I know.
I was crying in that epilogue, though. I felt like that epilogue was so well done. Maybe that's just me. And
yeah, like the epilogue is fine.
Yeah. No. The back half of Maid-sama, I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. After, like, again, there's, like, a point where you're like, Usui and Misaki are really cute. And then it just goes, like, crazy for, like, 5 volumes. And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the only one that maybe arguably kind of did the back half rich family drama convolutedness better, you could maybe argue Oran.
Yeah, I was going to be like, Oran also does this.
Oran also does this, but Oran has this a lot more dispersed throughout the series.
Right? So much more.
Oran is literally rich people problems versus Maid-sama, and this is like, we're hinting that there's rich people problems, but we're not going to tell you the rich people problems until the last, like, chunk of the series.
It's not even half. Yeah, it's like...
Not
third.
Even half. Like, yeah, third, maybe quarter.
Yeah.
I would argue Maid-sama was almost like the quarter plus a little.
Yeah, we're like...
I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I love Maid-sama. Don't get me wrong.
I do love it. Exactly.
Fans, believe me, that was a series I watched when I was young and was obsessed with.
Exactly. I'm like, I love that, but like and the other thing was it had the love triangle set up, and then the secondary guy ends up with the sister, right? And you're just like, that's just settling.
I forgot about that. See? Again, you can't tell me that that's not the equivalent of fading into obscurity, because you forget about that. Because again, it's just it feels so much like settling. You're like, oh, I guess that happened. Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Listen, I would have loved a better ending, being literally pulling an Oran, basically, where Ten and Riku move into some new place, and then Chiaki's like, guess what, best friends? I'm living next door. I think that would be much more in character for all of them. And then they get to all be friends and have dinner together every day.
Yeah. But no, that's not what happened.
No, that's not what happened.
I also have to say that, going back to my earlier point, like still talking about Riku and Ten as a couple here, they have a lot of charged sexual-ish moments.
It's a little spicy.
It gets
it gets on the precipice of spicy.
Yeah, I was like, it doesn't actually ever go to spicy.
You're
levels.
thinking about asking for a higher star of spice on your meal, but then you change your mind at the last minute.
Yeah. So this is another point where I'm always like, Suu Morishita manga like to have this tension that feels so high. And then when it breaks, you're like, but wait a minute, what? You can't do that.
Yeah, and it's almost frustrating too, because I get it, demographic-wise, this is not a josei, but there have definitely been shoujo series that, I mean, sex is a thing teens deal with. There have been shoujo series that deal with that. Usually it's in a fade to black scenario, but it's been there. And I feel like...
I feel like in all the situations, it was like, I definitely don't want them to do it, because like Riku's not in the emotional space for that. Yeah, exactly. It was always when Riku, it was a lot less of them being very, like, for lack of better phrasing right now in my head, less charged with lust, and a lot more like Riku needs some comfort.
Yeah, his, like, it almost feels like his hidden love language is physical touch, and he's just like desperate for that feeling of acknowledgement. And it doesn't feel like ever creepy or predatory. Like, I never got the vibe that he was super like forcing himself. I think sometimes he would get a little like carried away, and then he'd step back, and then Ten's like, no, but you can keep kissing me, it's okay, I actually liked this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, there was kind of, you could argue that moment in was it the hot spring? Was maybe they were separate from everything, but I don't know. I agree with you. Like, I didn't want it, but I was also like...
You're like, but it's really set up very well.
It's set up well. Like, you don't, for once, it doesn't feel, like you said, like, there's so many moments where you're like, is this unsettled? Like, should I be unsettled by this tension? Is this positive
Yeah.
tension? Those scenes I actually felt like, oh, okay, I can kind of vibe with this tension. But like you said, it was like with the underlying, but I know this is just because emotions are high for everyone right now and everyone's real sad. And like Ten is scared of losing Riku forever, which again, I'm like, girl, that boy is wrapped around your finger. Even when he says we need to take a break, he pulls a 10 and it's purely him being like, okay, 10, you know, and 10's like heartbroken and we're like, 10, you do realize you just did this to him 2 volumes ago, where you're like, wait, I need to better myself. But Riku's like, no, we need a break. We need to be just friends. And his is like, I'm an emotional wreck. I need to better myself emotionally to be there for you. Which I think is a much more appropriate thing versus dieting. Again, not to shade 10 and praise Riku, because that's going to come off that way. I'm so frustrated, though. I wish it was both. I'm so frustrated that that the writing made 10's journey of bettering herself so physical, whereas Riku got the more emotional, like, I'm stepping away to better myself, and it's a very emotional, maturing thing. And I wish they both were given that kind of thoughtful arc.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me be like, not that it makes sense, but it was also, like, it does make sense. But one of the most emotional parts for me was, you know, when Riku, in explaining part of his family situation and like why he didn't tell 10 on his own, he's like, well, 10, how could I tell you that? You have like the perfect life, you know, like you have a loving family and everybody thinks you're so cool. Like, why would I tell you something so horrible? I don't want to make you sad. Like, you don't have a point of comparison. It's just like, yeah, they couldn't make 10's character arc interesting when they set up no other like drama tension, you know?
Yeah, no. It was still the Riku show from the start. And by no real intentional fault of his own. It's by, again, adults being trash. But like, I agree. It's like they 10 wasn't given a lot to go with.
It was all about like her choosing, either Chiaki or Riku.
And then that choice happened so early, which is fine. I know in the first half of the podcast I talked about how I actually really liked that, and I did. But I was a little frustrated that then the whole journey of their relationship with their friends was just, we have to solve the Riku family problem.
Yeah.
Which, again, is a very great storyline, but maybe not the whole storyline that happens and then everything ends happy. I'm like, we're not going to have Riku meet 10's family? We're not going to spend more time with Chiaki and his brother at all? Like...
Oh, Chiaki and his brother.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to see more of that. I was a little sad we didn't get a little more of that.
Yeah, so it's just like, I don't know. Going back to the initial point about tension, I've always been like, I don't understand. Because I feel this way about A Sign of Affection, too, where the main guy in that just looks so not like a stereotypical hero of either a Josei, or he looks like the mean one.
Yeah,
that you would expect.
He definitely does. I was like, wait, oh, this is the love interest. Okay.
Yeah. So with him, I'm always like, is he a good guy?
I know, isn't that kind of crazy to think about? Like, there's such a, like, even with all the different mangaka's art styles, there's such a traditional art style archetype for how the main hero character in shoujo and josei looks and appears, that we're just so, like, now instinctively, subconsciously, like, suspicious of
like,
anyone
that guy
who doesn't
cannot
fit
be
that.
good. And so I've read all 4 volumes that are out in English right now, and I'm like fairly convinced that he is a good guy by this point. Like, but
we're like, you're still on my list. I don't trust.
Yeah, I'm just like, we're not quite there yet, but we're like something happened in volume 4 where I was like, he had an opportunity to be a very bad guy, and he wasn't. So, like, he's probably good.
Good to know. Good to know, because I was gonna get real sad because I really liked the first volume, and I was like, if I have to fight this guy, I'm gonna be upset.
No, I really, really, really like that series so far.
Good to know.
Given the weird storytelling methods of duo Suu Morishita, I'm like trepidatious about where it's gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah. And then going back to Shortcake Cake, I think, again, we talked about this a little in the first part of how you kind of expect Chiaki to be the main love interest, and then you're like, oh, it is Riku? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can get down with that. Like, I enjoy Riku, but, like, you just were so... It's not what we expected. And again, there's a subversion there I really like. The back half just then... It didn't squander it. There's a lot I really enjoyed. Again, I think there is something to be said about the relationship and the friendship. I like that Ten and Chiaki team up to help Riku versus just Ten, because I think it makes it slightly more about the friendship instead of just, I must do this for my boyfriend. Which it is that way for Ten, but I think making it a team effort with Chiaki makes it a little more about, no, this is also our friend is hurting.
Yeah.
We both care about him. Chiaki loves him more.
Chiaki definitely loves him more.
He's, oh God. I feel like I'm jumping all over the place. But y'all, this is how it feels to read the back half of Shortcake Cake.
You're just like, where am I? Whose perspective am I in? And why are they crazy? That's the back half.
What haven't we addressed yet?
I think we've addressed most things. I think that we should go through and very deliberately discuss all the wacky ships that happen here.
Oh, yes.
I tried to order them in order of importance, but you know that is very reverse order of importance.
Oh, reverse order. Oh, because I knew you loved Yuto, and so you said order of importance, and I saw Yuto's name first, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
No, reverse order of importance. Least important is Yuto and Aoi. That happened.
That happened. Again,
why?
Another thing where I'm like, if we were given more of a, like...
We don't need to pair the spares like this.
Yeah, you don't need... Everyone doesn't need to... Like, everyone in the friend group doesn't need to pair off with each other. Like, okay. This is going to reveal way too much about myself. So, because I was a huge hopeless romantic shoujo addict as a small child, you know, there was this weird learning curve then when I grew up and had to, like, be like, oh, we're not all just going to end up with one another and live like this small mini
you don't have to marry somebody
from
high school. Like, it's weird.
What? We're all not going to just marry each other and be one big happy little neighborhood commune? Like, which sounds terrible, because you'd be like, Olive, what? Why would you think that? But again, that's like how every shoujo manga ends. They all marry each other. There's no concept of it is impossible for you to meet a new person past the age of 18. Unheard of. Absolutely not. You will meet no new people that will interest you the way your friend group from age 15 will interest you. So yeah, I was like, I'm happy to see everyone in the epilogue. I'm a little confused why everyone somehow paired off and never met anyone new.
Yeah. Again, I will reveal too much about myself here, but like I feel like this drama has played out across multiple podcasts at this point, so everybody already knows it. But like, I, for 11 years, was with somebody that I met in high school, and like a lot of my friends actually have married like their high school sweethearts. Like at least 2 of my best friends have done that, and then there's another, my new closest friends, like we went to high school together, but they weren't a couple back then. They like got together in college. So I'm still like, oh my gosh, but like kind of, like it's kind of real.
I mean, I've got a few of those. Like my 2 best friends, they're like brothers to me. They're I've known them since high school, and one of them is married to his high school sweetheart, and they have 2 kids who are now like my nephews. So we've got that a little too. But
but now I'm married to somebody I met in college, because you do in fact meet
right?
new
No,
people.
yeah, like I'm still in contact with like friends I made from high school, but it's not like I see them every single day and we're all like,
Yeah, no.
I would argue, and again, everyone is different, but I would argue it's more the case for me with my college friend group, like my college friends. Like, I currently live with like my best friend from college, so, and that was years ago, y'all. College was a while ago for me now, which is upsetting to say out loud. So, yeah, but it's just that funny thing where in shoujo manga specifically, it's like you turn 18 and no, you will never meet anybody else.
You will never meet anybody else.
Romantic or friend is the thing that kills me too. It's like, it's not just romance, it's friends too. Like, none of them ever have any friends outside of their high school friend group.
Like, they go to work and they're just like, I don't like these people.
I'm like, you have no work friends? Okay.
None of your colleagues are nice? Okay.
But yeah, no. The Yuto and Aoi, I was like, I'm happy for you, I guess.
No. I was like, I didn't need this randomness. I didn't need this.
I know. I'm like, I guess I'm happy for you, but where did this come from?
Where did this come? Yuto liked her all along. No, shut up.
Ow.
Shut up.
He was just an awkward boy who wanted to study. He hated anyone flirting.
Yeah.
Like, I could see the puppy crush, but that's the other thing. I'm like, you really want me to believe that everyone who harbored a secret puppy crush at the age of 15, 16, or 17 then, like, flipped around and was like, I've been in love with you this entire time.
I've been in love with you.
Like, and I get it. It's a story. It's escapism. We love those happy endings. Don't get me wrong. I read romance books. I adapt romance novels for things. Like, I'm a sucker for that, and yet.
Yeah, I'm watching Bridgerton right now, season 2. I'm like, give it to me.
Injected in my veins. Yeah, but sometimes it's like, when it's every single person, it's like you can literally, you draw a circle of all the characters, and then you make like a spider web because literally everyone connects across the circle to someone else.
Like, I don't need that.
It feels a little forced.
Yeah. So in the end, okay, we do get a new person, but I don't think Rei loves her. We get this implication that Rei might have a partnership with this girl, Sarah, who we meet for like 5 seconds.
It feels a lot like, it feels like an arranged marriage almost, where it's like,
oh, I mean, he's definitely having like marriage meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, he's having marriage meetings, and then we have Sarah, who for some reason is not bothered by gremlin adult.
He looks less like a gremlin.
Okay, he does look a lot less like I will say, even though we saw none of it happen, it was all off page, all off screen. He clearly underwent lots of character growth, A+ gremlin, but still standoffish. And again, where I'm sitting here, I'm like, why is the final mark of his growth him being with someone?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, he's shown so much improvement in this epilogue and taking over the family and being oh, and there's this random person in marriage means who sees through that standoffish exterior and is so sunny and cheery that you can tell he's just gonna soften up that little heart for her. And I'm just like, I mean, cute, I guess, but again, like you said, you're just like, okay.
What do you think of Rei with, I believe it is Ron and Shiraoka's child who like is obsessed with him in the epilogue? What's her name? Hinagiku or whatever. She's like so in love with Rei.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings. At first I was a little uncomfortable because I thought it was doing the thing where it was setting it up, and I was like, absolutely not.
Like, no.
We are not doing a Jacob and Renesmee situation here. I will riot. I thought it was she was a little heavy-handed, but like, again, she's a 5-year-old, and Rei is clearly like, no.
Yeah, Rei's just like hi.
He's just extreme awkward uncle. So that I was okay with because of his response. And again, maybe that's, to me, I'm like, that's the only reason I could see justification for having Sarah in there, so you don't even question that Ray's gonna one day, like,
you
in
need to make
20
sure that
years,
Ray's not gonna eventually marry Ron and Shiraoka's
child with the 20+ year age gap. And to me, I'm like, again, unnecessary. We could have just not had her be obsessed. Like, you could have had her be obsessed with my uncle is so cool, screw you, Dad, and not I'm gonna marry him and have Dad laugh it off thinking it's cute. And then that would negate the need for Sarah. Because literally, I feel like Sarah is literally only there to, be like, look, Rei has reached this final stage of character growth, which is apparently you must fall in love with someone. And then 2, look, Ray's not going to be a predator.
Yeah, like, Rei is
when you saw Rei being standoffish, awkward uncle, that was actually him being an awkward uncle.
He's just a weirdo, yeah.
Yeah, no. So how did I feel about that? I was not a fan.
Not a fan.
I got a chuckle at his reaction, but that was only when I was reassured that it was not a Jacob and Renesmee situation.
Yeah. It's like, ugh, I don't want this.
Please, God, no.
Okay, so we discussed that Ron deserved a better proposal from Shiraoka, but do you like them as a couple overall?
I feel like I'm gonna get hate for this. I do.
I do too.
Okay, I do. Mostly because I relate a lot more to Ron in the, for lack of better phrasing, my closest relationships with some of my best friends, not romantic, but my best friends, I like to say our love language is violence. We're very snarky with each other.
I don't think that's one of the ones listed in the 5 love languages by Gary.
No, it's not. But we're very snarky with each other. It's all out of love. And I've always been more endeared in fiction to couples with a lot of playful banter. Because for me, and just the way my personality is, that is a lot more of a sign of, like, walls coming down and, like, being very comfortable in your own skin with the person. And there was something that endeared me to them literally from, like, before there was ever any inkling or hint that they used to be a thing in the manga, like, when they first interacted and were, like, butting heads, I was like, they're into each other. And maybe that says a lot more about me, because I'm always picking the couples that are like, I hate you, and I'm like, you're in love. So maybe that's an Olive problem. But I actually really, with the exception of she deserved a better proposal, Shiraoka should have let his walls down for her that one time at the end, at least. But overall, I am happy that they ended up together. They were a couple I wanted to see together at the end.
Yeah. And Ron's, like, so cool. Like, obviously they're going to be paired together. They're like the badasses. Yeah,
they're the young adults who unintentionally had to be super adults to all these kids. So Ron is, like, very big sister, and then Shiraoka had to be big brother. Probably before they were really at the emotional maturity level to do so, because I stand by that. Now that I'm older, I read all these, like, shoujo manga series and even josei series, and I'm like, then I see the characters' ages, and I'm like, I just blink a little, and I think about myself at the age of 23, 24, 25, and I get a little frightened. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, anybody below the age of 25 is still a baby.
Yeah. And, like, again, it's different society. Like, I know for some, I can't speak for everything, and again, I'm not going to act like I know a whole lot about Japan, but I do know, like, schooling and, like, heading into the workforce and stages where you're considered more, by societal standards, like an adult, I think are a little different, but still I'm like, y'all.
No.
Let's stop forcing emotional maturity onto people honestly pre-30. Like, I know I'm in my late 20s, but gosh, I like... The only reason I could argue quote-unquote semi-emotional maturity is because I had to deal with all of that in the early 20s and mid-20s, and now I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm here. I crawled out of the war zone.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be there, but we got here.
We got here. We got to get out now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's always a weird thing for me because, like, they're supposed to be the adults in the series, but to me, they're still kids.
Yeah. And then, like, the only other adult that's left living, the only other adults that are left living are the grandfather and Riku's biological mom, and you're like, that's not better.
That's not better, no. Especially because they're just kind of there.
They're there.
They kind of are there, and they're not great.
No.
They're not great.
They're just not good.
No. I mean, I guess they did have her, Riku's mom in the epilogue, kind of, didn't they? I think. Am I remembering that correctly?
Was she there?
I think they had a very brief moment where they're like, yeah, things are chill, I guess, with them.
I think they did explain that things were chill.
Yeah, I don't know if they had a panel with her visibly in it, but I think there was at least a line being like, yeah, things good. Things are good. But, which I'm assuming they'd have to be if Chiaki is with Hotaru.
Yeah. So, okay, the one thing I really want to say about Chiaki is that Chiaki is living my best life, actually, at the end here, because he has a book cafe that apparently is his main business and making lots of money because he's hot. Yes. And I'm like, I want to have a manga cafe, and I could only hope that it would be popular enough to like sustain me.
Let's be real here. Chiaki is living the dream.
Yeah.
And I will argue, I mean, we don't get to see a lot of her, but Hotaru's a catch. There's just all this weird baggage behind that, which makes me not root for it. But, like, if we had just, like, randomly met Hotaru in the epilogue and, like, Chiaki had given us a little brief intro of how he met her, I'd have been okay with it. I would have been like, all right, good for you, dude. Good for you. But instead it feels like, nah, you settled because you couldn't get Riku and Ten. You couldn't keep living with them. They kicked you out, so you're still friends.
So then Morishita made a girl specifically for you who likes books.
Also, I forget, because what is their age gap? Not like, again, age gaps are fine. Like, again, I say this as someone whose parents are 9 years apart. I should preface that. They met later, because, you know, as the older you get in your adulthood, the less noticeable and the less it matters. So they met at that point. But, so that, it doesn't necessarily faze me, but it's more of they did meet when he was technically 16.
I think she's only
17.
3 years older.
Okay, so she was in college.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, it's fine.
It's fine, because I'm trying to remember the epilogue, their ages in the epilogue. Because it wasn't 18. It was like, I think, was it like 20 or 21?
I think so,
Yeah, to me, which is still, again, it's so funny to think about, like, when I was a kid reading Shojo, and I'm like, gosh, 2021, wow, you're so adult.
So old.
Which is, like, that weird thing where, again, not this, I can't get too tangent sidetracked, but now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, I get that it kind of comes with the territory, but now I see why I'm a little uncomfortable with, like, the happily ever after trope in shoujo where they get married and engaged at 18. I'm like,
yeah.
See, this is what's encouraging a lot of... Listen.
Ten and Riku needed to simmer down, in my opinion, honestly.
Yeah, they did. Like, and I did appreciate that in the epilogue it seemed like they did simmer down a little, because, like, Ten's like, okay, I'm going in college and stuff like that. But it was like, when I say simmer down, I mean, like, we turned the knob on the gas stove from high to, like, so number 10 to, like, 8.
Yeah.
That was the simmer down.
They're like, we are definitely going to get married, and we are so in love. And the real point of this manga and why it's named Shortcake Cake is just that Ten is always going to make him birthday cakes forever until he dies.
Mm-hmm. And Suu Morishita likes the wordplay titles in all of their series.
Yes, exactly. So that's what the end, folks.
That's it. Oh boy, yeah.
So that's shortcake cake. It sure happened to me.
It sure happened. And then for those listening at home, I do love in our shipping list, the most important ship at the bottom of the list is the OTP, Chiaki and Riku.
Duh! Chiaki and Riku was the real... Okay, I was going to ask this earlier and I forgot. At what point did you give up on Chiaki and Riku? Because for me, it was still real late. It was like when Hotaru was introduced and Chiaki was like, stared at her and I was like, oh, damn it.
Okay. Call me jaded. But from the get-go, because I'm just like, this is too good to be true. I'll never get this from a shoujo manga. But although again, my love mix-up is just telling me otherwise. I mean, you could argue that I held more of a candle much further on, but I feel like I am a bit of a jaded reader where I am more often than not pleasantly surprised, and I operate under the don't get your hopes up. You know, you're going to have to go to fanfiction.net if you really want to see them hold hands. But I think you could argue even like there's still signs of it when he busts through the freaking door when Riku's meeting his mother. And Chiaki's like, Riku, I love Riku. He's a good friend of mine. And whatever you're planning to say to him, if it's something that is just going to hurt him more, please don't. Because exactly. I think that was miles more mature and better worded than what Shirooka said. Granted, Chiaki is the master of words as the reader of the group, but
But is he though?
Yeah, good point. But yeah, so
I guess for me it was like this is one of those things where I was like, maybe Suu Morishita knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they executed it perfectly. Because I definitely when Riku tells Ten like, hey, because the problem is that like from Chiaki's perspective, you're always like, oh, that guy is super gay for Riku, right? Like 100%. It's harder on Riku's side, but I would argue that there are always like hints where you're like,
oh yeah.
But maybe.
And then when Riku does take a break from 10, you're like, hold on.
Exactly. I was like, did he take a break from 10? Because he actually likes Chiaki?
Like, again, you know it's too good to be true. But you're like, wait a minute. But what if?
Because all the hints you get are like, okay, so even way back in volume 1, you know, like when Riku's kind of like forced to confess to 10 because she like overheard him and Chiaki talking about her. And he at one point is just like, well, I only liked her a little bit. I was like, is it because you really liked Chiaki? You know? It's like...
And I think, again, I feel like the back half of this podcast, when I went from part 1 where I was just, I'm obsessed with 10, I feel like now it feels like I'm really ragging on 10, which is not what I want it to sound like. I do love 10. But it's hard too because I feel like, again, the way of the writing of the series, yes, 10 did a lot. Do not get me wrong here. But so many of the scenes between Chiaki and Riku really felt like the big pinnacle moments where it felt a lot like Chiaki was the one who kind of brought down both 10 and Riku's walls. Like, it kind of felt like when it was Chiaki was the one who was like, Riku, open up a little. Like,
yeah.
Like, in a weird way, like, it felt like Riku was like, 10, I don't want you to know this about me. It's going to ruin our relationship. Please don't do this just because you feel you need to do this because we're dating. And then Chiaki steps in and is like, nah, bro, we're doing this because we're your friends and we love you. And then he's like, oh.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that Riku, at some point, tells 10 that, you know, in Shirioka explaining Riku's demeanor, he's like, I'm actually a lot responsible for Riku pretending to flirt with all the, or like flirting with all the girls and smiling all the time. Like I told him that stuff. And so like Riku with 10 is like, well, I'm just like pretending kind of to be a good boyfriend because he hasn't told her and everything. And it's just like all of these hints.
Yeah.
Really.
It's a learned behavior. And like, I do believe that he does really like 10 and like he does behave differently with her. But again, so many, God, it's so much bisexual subtext in my mind. There's just so much. Where again, it's not that I don't necessarily believe he's attracted to 10. It's like, I'm like but why not both? Very much that as someone who did not know as a kid that like the concept of bisexuality, like literally in the environment I grew up, and this is nothing against my parents. This was nothing they did. It was the school I was at, which they were not. Yes, parents should be aware of the school you're at, but at a certain point, you don't know what gets said in the hallways and stuff, so they weren't totally privy to all this. You were straight or you were gay. Like, and then I had a crush on a boy when I was in like 5th grade. So of course my brain's like all through high school and stuff like, oh, I've had crushes on boys, not gay.
Yeah.
LOL. So like that part, whenever like with these teenagers in these shoujo series where I see that bisexual subtext, I know some people on the internet like, stop trying to force sexuality on kids. I'm like, not what I'm trying to do. I'm very much like, no, but I'm also like, listen, I'm very pro these kids being like, you know, Riku, you may have feelings for both 10 and Chiaki.
Yeah.
The two most important people in your life, you may have feelings for both. And I'm also very pro total platonic male friendship. Although, I'm sorry, Chiaki's 100% bisexual. I'm sorry. That dude, 10,000% into Riku. I'm sorry. That one there's nothing you can do to convince me otherwise.
It's just, in the end, it's hard to tell if it's masterful storytelling or just, like,
an accident.
Horrible. Right? Like,
I want to believe it's masterful because it makes me feel better, but there's a lot of times where I'm like, this might have been an accident.
All right, you know what? I think I'm going to have to reserve judgment until, like, A Sign of Affection is done.
Yes.
And see how that goes, and I'll be like, how does this affect my opinion of how, like, Shortcake Cake...
Especially because I don't think... We don't have any of their other series available in English, yeah?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Because Shortcake Cake was our first from them, and then Kodansha licensed Sign of Affection after that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's their most recent, their ongoing one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I will be very curious to see how Sign of Affection pans out, because, like you said, I think that'll change a lot of my determination of question marks in Shortcake Cake of, was this really
I think that will help me understand what Suu Morishita as a duo is like about. Like,
like what is their style exactly? Because you really can't tell with one versus when you read multiple, you're like, okay, this is almost always a story beat I can expect from them kind of thing.
Right, you learn what the authors are like obsessed with. Like Clamp is obsessed with Hitsuzen and whatever, right? Like Arina Tanemura is very obsessed with idols and doomy romances. Like, fine. Yes.
And again, I stand by, and I think I mentioned this to you before we started recording, but for the audience, I made the comment, and oh God, I'm saying this knowing the internet will kill me for this. Listen, full disclaimer, I have read all these series and I have a space in my heart for them. Do not get me wrong. My cousins have them all stacked in their shelves, and I grew up staring at them, and they loaned them to me, and I read them. Do not misunderstand me. But here's my vibe. I'm very interested to see if Suu Morishita strikes me as like another kind of Rei Tanemura, not in storytelling style and tropes, not at all. They're very different, but specifically in the hard left veer and then quick ending in the back chunk of the series, because I am sorry, all of Rei Tanemura's series, I'm like, please God, give me 2 more volumes. This happened so fast. Why is it over? Why did this just suddenly take a hard left and end? And I got that vibe from Shortcake Cake where I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even see the road sign when we turned. So I'm curious to see if that is also something I can expect from their series, or if that was a Shortcake Cake thing.
Yeah, it's just like, is there going to be development? Is this a thing? I need to know, you know?
Yeah,
I need at least 2 data points.
Yeah, and it's hard to like make the judgment of, oh, are they growing? I mean, everyone's always growing as a creator, but is it like growing pains? Because I do know they have Shortcake Cake is not their first series. It's their first series licensed in English, so that us in the English-speaking audience are exposed to them therefore, but in Japan, that is not their first series.
Yeah, because in the back of volume 12, it talked about them being very popular in Germany, actually, for like 2 series, and one of them was definitely not A Sign of Affection, I'm pretty sure.
No. Because that's where, like, when people are like, what's the name Shortcake Cake? If you read, all of their series have some kind of wordplay, and depending on the language, so, like, it has either, I think it's a repeat word. Yeah, it's a repeat word. So in English, like, the series was just called Shortcake Cake, so it just translated directly. I forget the character in Sign of Affection that has the repeat. But
it doesn't work in English, right?
It doesn't work in English, so they localized it to have wordplay in English. So Sign of Affection, sign language, yeah. So they did still localize it to have a wordplay title, which I appreciate because that is their thing. But yeah, so fun fact about Suu Morishita.
Anyway, that's Shortcake Cake.
Suu Morishita, yeah.
That's Suu Morishita. Tell us your feelings about Suu Morishita, everybody. So thanks for listening to Shojo and Tell. Comments, questions, constructive criticism, concerns. Need to tell us how much you do or do not love Shortcake Cake? Email shoujoandtell@gmail.com or leave a comment on the episode's YouTube page. We're at Shojo and Tell on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. Olive, once again, where can people find you and your work on the internet?
Hi, yes, you can find me on Twitter at all of the manga, spelled ALLOF, the manga. And my title is Olive the Manga Reader. I have links there to my writings. I most frequently write at But Why Though, a geek community, although work has been insane, so I haven't published recently. Bless their hearts. I've also have work on Anime Feminists, so yeah. But it's all linked on my Twitter. You can find links to my work on my Twitter.
Great. Well, are you excited every time you see a new episode from us? If so, please consider leaving a rating on Apple Podcasts. This will help the show reach more hearts, or at least ears. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next time for Planet Ladder, probably. I did read the first chapter of it a few weeks ago when I was confused about scheduling, and it was definitely bonkers. I don't think I know what was happening, and I'm sure when I reread it, I still won't understand. It really puts Shortcake Cake in perspective. Shortcake Cake was fine. Asher's gonna do that with me. He's read most of it by now, and I think he's also like, I don't know what is happening. So until then, bye.